Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. Today I'm coming to you from a different location because I'm working here at Macquarie Park, near the Macquarie Park Shopping Centre, and I'll be delivering my Jim's 5am Club from this balcony up here, and we'll do a little short walk and talk. But today's topic, or today's book summary, is entitled Spy the Lie. Spy the Lie by Philip Hewson, who's somebody who understands the science behind lying, and more importantly, how to figure out when somebody's lying and when they're not lying, and understand what the motivations are for people to lie. So in his book, he comes up with a statement that basically we're being lied to all the time. Every single day, in fact, lots and lots of people are lying to us, and we're also lying to ourselves in many ways. But according to this author, all the lies that you've ever been told or will ever be told will fall into one or more of the following three categories or strategies. There are lies called lies of commission, there are lies of omission, and there are lies of influence. So they're the three key categories that the author comes up with. So let's try and figure out why we lie in the first place. So the author here suggests that scientists, psychologists, and psychiatrists estimate that on average people lie or get lied to at least 200 times a day, which is pretty massive. 200 times a day you're being deceived by somebody who's not being upfront with you and telling you the truth. And it's interesting to understand and to learn this, because I really appreciated reading this, because sometimes we don't understand why people lie. But I know the reason why I lie. So, and it says here that most people lie to avoid conflict or to avoid hurting someone's feelings, and are really harmless. They're harmless lies. They're lies which are designed to not cause harm, not to cause pain. And there are many times where I will lie to avoid conflict. And it's the sort of thing that you learn after 35 years of marriage, that sometimes the battle is not worth it, the conflict is not worth it. So you're better off just saying something to get through it, rather than to confront and have to deal with the consequences for days and weeks, maybe years on end, where you never hear the end of it. So it's good and it's comforting to hear that most lies are to avoid conflict, and especially to people who don't like conflict. There are some people who thrive in conflict. I've worked with people who absolutely get off on conflict. They just love it. They get to work in the morning and they just can't wait to confront people left, right and centre. And I guess they're the ones who make it to the very heights of their career, because they love just taking on people, and every fight, every battle is an opportunity just to grind away one step higher, one step further up their career path. So there are people who, I guess like me, who don't like conflict. I don't like taking people on. I guess it's probably the fact that I was an only child growing up. I was a centre of love to my parents, to my uncles, my aunts, my relatives, and I didn't really need to compete with anybody for affection, for time, because I had plenty of love from everybody around me. So I don't really thirst for attention or or thirst for love, because I've had it in spades and have been comforted by it over the years. But the author also mentions here that if you do build a habit of lying, even if they're white lies, even if they're lies to avoid conflict or to avoid hurting someone's feelings, on the one hand they're harmless, but they can build into harmful sort of lies, because what's happening is that you're learning how to lie, you're learning how to get away with things, which isn't really good in the long term, because there are times where the truth is essential and trust is built on truth. And if people find out that you're lying, even though your lies are little white lies or harmless lies to avoid conflict or to avoid hurting somebody's feelings, the truth will surface, will bubble to the top. So the author here talks about learning from the professional lie spotters how to spot a lie, so that you can gauge the people around you or the social circle around you or your work peers to when they're lying, and then you can assess whether or not that lie is a white lie or it's an important lie that could cause you grief and your family grief. But the author then says that lie detection is very, very difficult because communication is complex. We all have different communication styles. We are very, very complex in the way we communicate. And we all have multiple biases, and our expectations vary, and then all these things when combined throw us off. Because in order to spot a lie, the author says that we need to do two things simultaneously. We need to be able to focus hard on the verbal and the non-verbal cues at the same time. And it's easy, really, really easy to miss a cue. It's really easy to miss a vital cue, which will spoil your opportunity to spot the big lie. Because our biases, we've got multiple biases depending on how we grew up, what our cultural background is, what generation we are in, and all the experiences, all the limited sort of experiences that we've had in our lives. Because at the end of the day, we've all had a slither, just a slither of reality. We've had 1 or 2 relationships or 10 relationships. We haven't had hundreds of relationships in our lives to be able to understand the full spectrum of human behaviour. So we have biases that we've inherited from other people, our parents, our family, our friends, our teachers, but we've also generated a lot of those biases through our own experiences. And these biases, according to the author, influence our view and taint our judgment. So let's get back down to the cues and understand the science of lying. Because what the author says here is that people give both verbal and non-verbal cues when they are lying, and you should look for clusters of these. Don't just look for the one-off or a couple of them that have just popped up, because that'll maybe alert you to the fact that they're lying when they may not be lying. You need to look for a cluster, a grouping of these verbal and non-verbal cues, and that'll give you an opportunity to at least focus more on what's happening. Because at the end of the day, we've all learned in our lives that if you've got nothing to hide, people give both direct answers to direct questions. So communication is pretty simple. If you're not bullshitting, if you're not hiding something, then somebody asks you a question and you just give an immediate direct answer with no bullshit, no mucking around. However, liars, on the other hand, are the people who find it hard to give a direct answer to a direct question, and they try and reinforce your faith in them by giving strings of convincing statements. Strings, we've all got those people in our social circles who are bold and confident and talk with audacity and are the Mr. or Mrs. Know-it-alls or the Ms. Know-it-alls, and you know who they are in each of our social circles. You know, they pop up all the time, and you can tell that they're lying because they try to convince you over and over again by the same old strings of convincing statements. And it's sort of convincing statements that people give, you know, it's not in my nature to do this, or no one else would ever question my honesty, and they just throw those little convincing statements out just to throw other people off guard. So the sort of things that people do to try and hide, these are the verbal cues to try and hide, or to try and hide their lies, but they're also the cues that allow you to try and identify that they're lying, is that they'll repeat the question. You know, you ask them a question and they'll repeat the question, and they'll repeat the question in order to gain some thinking time, is what the professionals suggest. Other people fail to answer the question. You know, you hear this in politics all the time. They'll just talk and talk and talk and distract and not even answer the question. So you need to get them back on track and tell them to answer the question. So if people are failing to answer the question, chances are that they're avoiding and they're bullshitting. If they give an answer which is overly specific, then there again, you know, they're giving an answer, but they're being specific, and by being too specific, they're being too legal, and they're saying, well, that's not what I meant later on, because I meant this or I meant that. If they're too specific in their answering, then that's another dead giveaway that they're lying to you, and they're throwing bullshit in your direction. If you ask a person a simple question and they fail to deny something, then that is another verbal clue that they could be lying. Or they may offer a non-specific denial, you know, just a general denial as opposed to a specific denial. Now you've got to hone them in and get them to do a specific denial in order to trust what they're saying to you. Other people, like children, are reluctant to answer. If somebody's reluctant to answer, then chances are they're lying to you. And of course, you know, if you give enough people enough rope, now they'll end up hanging themselves. So inconsistent statements. So if you listen intently to what they're saying, sooner or later you'll identify inconsistency in their statements, which was a dead giveaway for lying. But the best one of all is when people go on the attack. If you ask a question, or if you're having a general chat, and they get aggravated or irritated, and they go on the attack, which we've got lots of people who just go off the handle. When they go on the attack, obviously they've got something to hide, and that's another cue for them lying to you. The other cues that we have, the visual cues, are that when people nod and say no, that inconsistency could be an indicator that they're lying. If they're moving anchor points, so if they're sitting and they move their anchor point from one hip to the other, or from one elbow to the other, if they're moving their anchor points whilst you're talking to them, so physically they're moving their anchor points, how they're anchored to the ground, that's an indicator that they're feeling discomfort, and that discomfort could also be a significant indicator that they're lying. Other things that people do is that they do some throat clearing, so they tend to choke up. So when people are talking and they're throat clearing, and that's an opportunity to go harder on some more specific questions to see if the throat clearing increases. They put their hands to their face, they hide their mouths or their eyes, they groom themselves. All of these things are a show of deception that we need to be alerted to and aware of. So from our perspective as detectives of lies, as lie spotters, we need to learn to be neutral and controlling in our questions so that they don't come back and tell us that we caused them to do this, that and the other, or we caused them to lie because of our questioning. Be gentle with your questioning, be neutral with your questioning, and don't be too controlling, else they will blame you for their lie. And just lead them along slowly but surely until you set the trap and get them caught out and triangulated by the lies, by their verbal, by their non-verbal and examples of them lying. And the final point to come out of this book, which is a massive, massive lesson to all of us, a great lesson. When you're probing with your questions, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the people to tell you more than what they're willing to tell you. And that will spring the lie. Because most people, are very thoughtful, are very clever at their lying. But the key point to come out of this book, and I guess probably the most important lesson in this book, is that when you're probing, when you're questioning somebody and you know that they're lying, or you get a feeling, an inkling that they're lying, when you're asking them questions and they finish their answer, you need to ask them one more question. And that question is, what else? What else do you want to tell me? It's a little bit like that McDonald's thing. Do you want fries with your order? Whenever you go to the takeaway window at McDonald's and they ask you for your order and you give your order, then they'll also ask, and what else? And what else? And what else? And that what else triggers subconsciously a reaction which you can't control, and you may end up blurting out something that you weren't prepared to do, or weren't prepared to order, or weren't prepared to say. So for example, if I go to McDonald's and I buy my wife a coffee and I say, and what else? Then I may be tempted, because subconsciously I want an ice cream, but I may be subconsciously pushed to verbalise yes and an ice cream as well, because my willpower gets caught off guard, so to speak. Anyway, let's finish off there. It's time for me to go to work. So let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I'm well, and I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable, and most importantly, let's make the most of this beautiful Saturday. I'm off to a fancy dress ball or dance tonight. Looking forward to having some fun, and we'll see how we go, because Apokrias come to an end, and we've got Kathari Deftera this Monday, where Lent commences for Greek Orthodox, which is a time of fasting and a time of prayer and deep thought. So take care, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.